everyone, welcome back to PMP Study Hall. In today's video, we're going to define leads and lags, crashing and fast tracking. These concepts belong to the project schedule management knowledge area and fall under the planning process group, specifically within the develop schedule process. They are all considered tools and techniques used to build and adjust the project schedule. Let's get started. And let's begin with leads and lags. Lag is a waiting period added between two tasks. In many cases, this waiting time is inevitable, meaning you have no choice but to wait. For example, after pouring concrete, you have to wait several days for it to cure before you can start framing the walls. That waiting time is called a lag. You can't avoid it. It's a physical requirement. Lead is when you start the next task before the previous task is fully finished. This will create overlap between the two tasks. Simple example. You can start painting some walls while the electricians are still finishing the wiring in other rooms. That is called a lead. Quick way to remember. Lag equals waiting time between tasks, often unavoidable. Lead equals starting the next task before the previous task is finished. Both leads and lags are considered tools and techniques in the develop schedule process, and they affect how much float you have in your schedule. Next, let's talk about fast tracking. Fast tracking is considered a tool and technique in the develop schedule process. More specifically, it is a schedule compression technique where you perform tasks in parallel that were originally planned to happen one after another. Simple example. Normally, you would finish the design of a building completely before starting construction. With fast tracking, you might start some construction work while the design is still being finalized. This overlaps the two phases to finish the project sooner. Important distinction. Lead versus fast tracking. Both leads and fast tracking involve overlapping work, but there's an important difference. A lead is when the next task starts while the previous task is still going on. This is a scheduling adjustment between two tasks. Fast tracking is when you decide to run entire phases or groups of tasks in parallel that were originally planned in sequence. In short, lead equals starting the next task early while the first task is still happening. Fast tracking equals running phases in parallel to shorten the overall project, usually carries more risk. Now let's talk about crashing. Crashing is considered a tool and technique in the develop schedule process. It is a schedule compression technique where you add more resources to a task to finish it faster. For example, if painting a building was supposed to take 10 days with one crew, you could crash it by bringing in a second crew. This might reduce the painting time to 5 or 6 days, but it will usually cost more money. Key points about crashing. Using the example mentioned as a reference, it adds cost because you're using more resources, such as extra people, overtime, or equipment. It can also increase risk. For example, having more people working at the same time can lead to coordination problems and quality issues. It is used when you need to shorten the overall project schedule. And finally, you typically crash tasks that are on the critical path because shortening non-critical tasks won't help the project finish earlier. Now, let's wrap up with the key takeaways from today's lesson. Lead is when you start the next task before the previous task is fully finished. Lag is a waiting period added between two tasks, and in many cases, it's inevitable. Crashing means adding more resources to finish a task faster. It increases cost and can increase risk. Fast tracking means running tasks or phases in parallel that were originally planned in sequence. It increases risk. Important distinction. A lead is a small overlap between two tasks. Fast tracking is a bigger decision to overlap entire phases. All of these are tools and techniques in the develop schedule process, and they all directly affect how much float you have in your schedule. That wraps up our lesson on leads, lags, crashing, and fast tracking. Thanks for watching, and see you next lesson.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. See you next lesson.